Hey guys, welcome back. We are still in the book, Who is Joan of Arc? And we are on chapter 3. Here we go. Sword and Banner. At first, the soldiers who traveled with Joan in her night mets didn't know what to make of her. They were surprised to find themselves escorting a teenage girl to meet their prince. But the longer they traveled with her, the more they believed her. It took 11 days for Joan and her friends to reach the castle fortress of Chinon. Here's a picture. The big castle. When they arrived, they waited for the castle guards to let down the drawbridge so they could enter. One of the guards insulted Joan. She told him that someone dying so soon should not be so rude. Later in the day, that very guard drowned in the waters of the moat that surrounded the castle. Had Joan secretly known of this man's future? Charles had heard all about Joan from Baudricourt, but he didn't yet know if he should trust her. So he decided on a test. Joan was led into the castle. She entered a room lit only by candles. It was filled with hundreds of knights. Only one man was dressed like a prince, but Joan walked right past him to another who was dressed plainly. He was short, he had a big nose and droopy eyes, and Joan dropped to her knees before him and said, "Most noble Dauphin, the King of Heaven announces to you, by me, that you will be anointed and crowned king." That is amazing. He tried to trick her, but God told her who the real Dauphin was. Joan had passed the test. She had known Charles, even though she had never met him and even though he had been in disguise. At the castle in Chinon, Joan met John, Duke of Alencon. He was only 23, but he had already spent 5 years as an English prisoner. It didn't take long for him to pledge his loyalty to Joan. She called him her Beau-Duc, or handsome Duke. But not everyone was convinced by Joan. Charles was surrounded by counselors. Many were greedy and selfish and had their own plans. They demanded that priests talk to Joan to make sure she wasn't working for the devil. Joan was questioned for 3 weeks by the local bishop. Sometimes Joan got impatient with all their questions and demands for signs proving that she was sent by God. "In the name of God, I did not come here to give signs," she said, "but take me to Orléans and I will show you the signs for which I was sent." Finally, Joan prepared to leave for Orléans. On March 22nd, 1429, Joan had someone write a letter for her and sent it to the English commanders, telling them to leave France on God's orders. The English army did not respond. They simply captured the messenger, known as a herald, who had delivered the letter. In order to free the town of Orléans, Joan would have to lead her soldiers into battle against the English. There were many things she needed to learn about warfare. Her many supporters had given her a horse that she'd quickly learned to ride well. Now she needed a weapon, a sword. A vision of St. Catherine told Joan that she could find a sword hidden in a chapel a short distance away. It would be buried near the altar. Joan sent a message to the priests of the chapel and asked them to find the sword for her. When the chapel was searched, the sword was just where Joan and St. Catherine said it would be. But the sword was old and rusty. It didn't look like it could protect anyone in a battle. Miraculously, when one of the priests touched it, all the rust fell away, and the old sword was ready for battle. Next, Joan had a suit of armor made. She predicted that she would be wounded at Orléans by an arrow above her chest, but not killed. Her armor was paid for by donations from the French people. Look at that. There's her armor and the sword. God still speaks to us today. French craftsmen also made Joan a banner or a flag to hold high for other soldiers to see. Some say her banner showed angels holding a lily. Others say it showed God holding the world with angels on each side. Whatever image was actually on that flag, Joan said, "I loved my banner 40 times better than my sword." Joan and her followers, including her brothers Jean and Pierre, were ready for battle, leading an army of 4,000 men. Joan arrived outside Orléans on April 29th. Most of the city walls were guarded by the English, but at night Joan was able to sneak in through one unguarded bridge. She brought 200 soldiers with her as well as supplies for the people inside. The rest of Joan's army hid nearby, waiting to attack the English. She is with her banner and her horse. She was very brave. I bet you're brave too. Okay, chapter 4, victory. Joan and 200 of her soldiers were now inside the walls of Orléans. Soldiers were not known for polite behavior, but Joan's army was different. She insisted that the men use no bad language. They had to go to church, and when girls came to the camp to flirt with them, Joan ordered them away. Some of the soldiers resented being bossed around by Joan. The English lived in forts that they had built just outside the city walls. Sometimes Joan called out to them over the walls of the city with orders to leave France. They shouted back that they would burn her if they ever caught her. On May 4th, French troops fought against the English at Saint-Lô, a town about a mile away. Back in Orléans, Joan woke suddenly from a nap. She was sure that there was fighting going on and French blood was being spilled. She raced out to Saint-Lô. When the soldiers saw Joan riding toward them with her banner, they felt as if God was on their side. They summoned their courage and beat back the English soldiers. Victory! Joan learned more English forces would be arriving soon. The next day, May 5th, was a holy day. It was considered disrespectful to God to wage war on a holy day. All the armies, both French and English, honored the church's holy days, so there would be no fighting that day. Joan wrote another letter to the English. She tied it to an arrow and shot it at them. "I would have sent you this letter in a more suitable manner," she wrote, "but you have kept my herald." Joan offered to trade some prisoners for the herald, but the English only answered her with insults. This brought Joan to tears, not because it hurt her feelings, but because she hated seeing so many people get hurt in battle. Joan herself had never and would never kill anyone. She did not understand why the English didn't just go home to England. On May 7th, 1429, Joan set her sights on capturing 2 towers that stood on the outskirts of the city. English soldiers had been stationed in them, and Joan and her French soldiers attacked the towers. Around noon, as Joan was climbing a ladder, she was shot by an arrow. The arrow went deep between her neck and shoulder. Her prediction about being wounded had come true. Joan was carried away from the fighting by one of her loyal soldiers. It is said that she pulled the arrow out of her shoulder by herself. The shoulder was treated with olive oil and bacon fat to seal the wound. The French continued to fight, but it looked as if they would lose the battle until Joan, having prayed and rested, returned. The sight of her banner waving once again gave the French courage. "All is yours," Joan cried, touching her banner to the nearest tower. "Enter." Wow. The French were victorious. The next day, the English retreated, and the city of Orléans was now free. The townspeople held a parade to celebrate. Wow. Oh my goodness, this book about Joan of Arc is a true story, and it is amazing and so great for the times that we're living in right now. Okay, guys, we'll see you next time for chapter 5 and 6 of Who Was Joan of Arc. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye.